Hello, everyone. Welcome to Donna's World and Wellness Wednesdays, my weekly segment about my struggles to improve myself, not just in terms of trying to lose weight, but also in terms of trying to look better, beauty, fashion, and just generally everything about improving me. It's about the mind, body, spirit, emotions, connection. So, last week I was very, very down in the dumps. I had had a really tough week and I wasn't looking forward to a trip I was going to make to Port Harcourt, the Nigerian city in which I was kidnapped in 2015. And so, last week I was very, very depressing. Thank you for all the encouraging messages I received from people who tried to tell me to cheer up and gave me advice. My mood has improved. I'm actually back in Abuja now. And as you can see, I talked about my thing about wigs because I told you that I had destroyed my own hair with all kinds of sort of treatments and straightening and curling and hot tongs over the years. And so I was too ashamed to show my hair in public, my real hair. So I wear wigs. And this week I'm wearing a different one. As you can see, it's a bit on the blondish side. Or is that a slight reddish tinge? Anyway, tell me, do you like it? Do you hate it? My sister thinks it's ridiculous. In fact, when I wore this in London, she refused to go to the supermarket with me. So, we've all got different, and yet there are friends who think that this wig is amazing, making me look younger and zanier and trendier. So I'd love to know what you think, okay? So, why do I feel better this week? Well, I feel better because a journey I was kind of dreading is over and I'm back to this. And I think generally I'm one of those people who has mood swings. And sometimes they relate to perfectly understandable things. Like, obviously, if your mother dies, your mood dives. If you do very well with a career triumph or something good happens at work, your mood goes up. But, I find that with me, sometimes, inexplicably, I suffer from mild depression, even when things aren't going too badly. When I was much, much younger, I tried antidepressants and they kind of helped, but I decided that I did not have a severe enough problem to justify being on medication all the time, just to keep my mood on an even keel. So I've learned to accept that, I'm going to have good weeks and good days and bad days. And this is a not too bad day. So, what should we talk about today? Oh, a lot of people, both privately, friends, who contacted me, on my phone, my private phone number, and people who contacted me through YouTube. Lots of people and other social media channels picked up on the fact that I said in last week's video that I'm a Catholic. I'm not a very good Catholic because I don't go to church every week, but I do believe in God, and my parish priest is happy to see me once in a while when I show up. And I did say that one of the things I thought would lift my mood a bit, what might lift my mood, is if I went to church. Because I have read somewhere that people who are religiously observant in a moderate kind of way tend to be more emotionally stable and happier than people who have no beliefs no belief in something that's higher than themselves. That is atheists or agnostics who aren't sure whether there's a God or not. And that's not to say that there are no happy atheists or that there are no miserable observant Christians or Muslims or Buddhists or whatever. It was just a sort of like general rule. Much of life is about generalizations, and not everybody will fit that mold. Anyway, so I did say I was going to try and make it to church to see if that cheered me up a bit and made me feel a little bit more stable. But I never got around to it because while I was in Port Harcourt, there was so much turmoil. There was a local government election going on, quite a lot of, stress and tension, and everybody was advised to stay at home and not move around too much. And so I didn't go to church. So maybe this week I'll be able to tell you, next week I'll be able to tell you that I went to church and that it made a difference or it didn't make a difference. Okay, now, another thing I want to talk about today is alcohol. I used to be a really, really heavy drinker when I was younger, and until about 5 years ago. Or call it, let's say more like 7 years ago. It started when I went to university, and the British in those days, and probably still now, are sort of like massive drinkers. And the minute you set foot in university, you automatically join a drinking culture that encourages students to go out, get completely wasted. It's fun, you're with your friends. Of course, there's a sort of dark side to the whole thing. There are girls, for example, who get get drunk and get assaulted while they are semi-conscious, and or people sort of like vomiting in public and making fools of themselves. But, my drinking experience at university was generally a positive one. We drank far too much, but I ran with a pack of girls from my university hall of residence, where we all, as I think Americans call them dorms, I don't know. And we had a great time, most of the time. I mean, once or twice, alcohol would make people lose their inhibitions and they'd start crying about some childhood trauma or issue they had in their lives. But as a general rule, I found drinking quite positive an experience. And we were young, so you could drink every night for a week and you didn't feel like death. You recovered very quickly physically. And so from the university drinking culture, I continued into a profession in London where heavy drinking was also encouraged, journalism. In those days, journalists drank like fish. A lot of them still do, but not so much. And it's not just because I'm older, so my own age group of journalists are less likely to be always drinking, because you do tend to drink less as you grow older if you're an average kind of person. It's also because I think all over the world, there's less emphasis. It seems to me that even younger people drink less now than we did when we were younger, me and my friends. Anyway, so I became a big drinker as a journalist. I married my husband. I mean, we practically conducted our courtship in a private drinking club. So there are lots of private drinking clubs in the UK for journalists, artists, writers, bankers, whoever. I belonged to great clubs called things like the Asylum and the Academy. And basically, after work, you just went there, met your friends, and you just drank all evening till about 2 a.m. or whenever the bar staff got tired and kicked you out. And at work, in those days, all the top publications were centered in a place called Fleet Street in London. And we'd go out at lunchtime with friends from the same newspaper or from other newspapers. And oh, by the way, Fleet Street was near the Royal Courts of Justice in London. So we also had quite a few lawyer friends. And we just go out at about 1 o'clock and stay out drinking till about 4. And somehow, miraculously, we'd come back and write articles that were really quite good, And so drinking was a part of my life. Then I moved to Nigeria for a while, and again, it was all about bars and jazz clubs and sitting around drinking and talking with your friends. And then it started to take its toll. As middle age dawned, the hangovers became more prolonged and more profound. And long story short, about 7 years ago, I kept on telling myself that, I had a problem and that I needed to solve this problem. I needed to quit drinking or to drink a lot less. And finally, about 7 years ago, basically, it was like a light switch was flicked off in my head. Bing! And I didn't desire alcohol anymore. I mean, I still drink, but very little. And I can go for days and days and days with a sort of like wonderful bottle of wine or brandy sitting on my table or in my house, and it goes untouched. So, why I'm raising this is because October is known as Stop October. It's a month in which the government and all the health industry tries to persuade people to quit alcohol, at least for that 1 month, to clean their systems out. And a lot of people do it, and I've read a lot of articles this month about people feeling much better because they haven't drunk. I mean, we're only, a week or two into October, and that means people have only been off alcohol for about maybe 7 to 10 days, and they're feeling a lot better. And so I'm just curious because for two reasons. First of all, what I don't understand is how I managed to ditch alcohol and become I went from being an extreme drinker to being a moderate drinker. And if you listen to all the alcohol charities and alcohol experts, they sort of say, if you're practically an alcoholic, it's all or nothing. You can't go from being an alcoholic to being a moderate drinker. You have to give it up completely. There's no middle ground, But what I find with myself and my friends is that that's exactly what's happened. We didn't go to Alcoholics Anonymous. We didn't do anything drastic. We just became moderate drinkers in old age or middle age. So, do any of you have a drink problem or think you should drink less? Or have any of you found that you can only go from drinking a lot to drinking nothing, that you can't cope with any middle ground? I think that's very important. And of course, I don't have to tell you all the bad things that alcohol does to the body. Just Google, everything from heart disease to cancer to high blood pressure. There's so many things, health challenges caused by excessive alcohol intake. I mean, even moderate alcohol intake supposedly is dangerous, though opinions are divided on that in the medical establishment. I mean, some doctors say it's fine to have 1 or 2 glasses of red wine or whatever every day. Some say don't drink anything at all. But the bottom line is, alcohol is a bit of a problem in the world today, and I'd like to hear your experiences with alcohol. Are you worried about your own drinking, or do you think your children or the people around you are drinking too much? Or do you think we've all become too boring and we should all drink more? That is what one of my friends said. Actually, Donnie, you have become so boring since you stopped drinking. I mean, he says, you used to be such fun. You used to be such fun, and now you're just sort of really, really boring. So I think, I miss the days when I was a live wire and a big drinker. But somehow I just can't get the drink down me anymore. So that's just the way the cookie crumbles for me, and I'd like to know how the cookie crumbles for you. Now, I'm going to also, you'll want to know about my weight loss, because that's actually the main point of this channel. It started with this desire to tackle my obesity. And then I decided that if I was going to talk about my weight loss, I might as well talk about my whole body and my whole mind and all the things that, make a person healthy. So since last week, probably about 2 kilos down. I say probably because I didn't weigh myself last week. I was so depressed I couldn't be bothered. I was convinced that I'd made no progress from the week before. Anyway, long story short, I don't know how much weight I've lost, but I will pick up the meticulous recording of my weight next week. All I know is that I think I've lost a couple of kilos because I did a little bit of fasting while I was away. And one of these days, I am going to explain why I have chosen fasting as my weight loss method, because a lot of people, like I said before, there are plenty of other perfectly good ways to lose weight. Mediterranean diet, Atkins diet, whatever. A lot of people think fasting is too extreme. Why fasting? It's unsustainable. But you know what? Everybody's different. I know people who've had fantastic results from fasting, and I will explain my whole fasting thing. Maybe next week, we'll see. Okay? Now, oh, by the way, I forgot to say that when I gave up drinking or went from being a very heavy drinker to a very occasional drinker, I was in the middle of major turmoil in my life. I was almost homeless for reasons that are very complicated. Maybe one day talk about that. So I was staying with my sister, and I had just so much. I had no money. My son was giving me stress. He was much younger then. And yet, I was able to walk away from heavy drinking. So there's two things that the experts tell you, which are not necessarily true. One is that you can't go from being an extreme drinker to an average drinker or occasional drinker. And two is that it's very difficult to give up when you're under a lot of pressure. The funny thing is, it didn't make any difference. When I was ready, I was ready, even though my life was a disaster zone at that time. So again, if you've tackled the drinking problem, would love to hear more from you about that. I'm now going to do my new usual thing of sharing some of the comments I have received from viewers. Okay, so now for the part of the show when I share some of the comments I've received from Wellness Wednesday viewers. Let me start by thanking everybody who's taken the trouble to get in touch or to at least even like the channel. And I can't cover everything that everyone has said to me on YouTube or Facebook or wherever, but I'll just randomly pick out a few responses now to share. So this is in response to my depression last week. Jennifer Clifford says, no need to be cheerful if you're not feeling it. I find sitting with my negative feelings rather than stifling them down allows me to move on more quickly. You're doing great, even if you're not compliant all the time with she means complying with my own self-improvement plans like weight loss. And she says she enjoys my perspective and outlook on life, and that I definitely add something to her day. God bless. Jennifer, thank you. I'm really, really touched that I add something to your day. And reading your message has added something to mine. Okay? And Azel77810 says she loves listening to me, and she can totally resonate with my complaints about my tendency to sabotage myself. Because last week I talked about how I keep on standing in the way of my own plans in a very negative way. It's a kind of masochism. And I'm in the middle of reading this book about self-sabotage, which I will share with you when I finish the book. So, Patricia Clark. Oh my God, Johnny, where are you coming from? 3 kilos weight loss and you are beating yourself up over a short period of weakness. Because I lost 3 kilos, I think, was the first week or... Anyway. So she's saying I shouldn't be so hard on myself, that when I've done so well in 1 week. If I have a week when I don't do very well, I should still take the view that I've done pretty well overall. And she says, you don't need me to tell you that entrenched coping mechanisms such as overeating don't come out of nowhere. And they are the body's response to traumatic and severe events that we have no control over or defenses against. And being kidnapped certainly counts as a traumatic event. The inevitable lapses are to be expected on your journey to recovery and should not be seen as a self-sabotage. Keep on with it and the rewards will come. It's just a matter of time. God bless. Thank you, Patricia. Thank you so much. Then Natalie Francis says that going to church is a brilliant plan. And it's normal when we start on a new course, everything that can throw Sorry, it's normal when we start on a new course for everything that can be thrown at us to knock us off our aims. It's a mind game, and that is where the war is when you're aiming to lose weight. I lost 70 pounds recently. Wow. Naturally, that's amazing. 70 pounds by not worrying about my size. Stress will overwhelm you. Cry if you need to. You know, it's funny thing is, I find crying so difficult. And that tells me something. It tells me that I'm so locked up and repressed. I can't even cry. I didn't cry at my father's funeral. I mean, once in a while, it will come out. But, you know, I am a pretty repressed, hemmed-in kind of person. So I agree, I should cry more because I definitely need to because it is therapeutic, as you point out, and meditation also helps. And meditation, of course, is about focusing your mind on what is good, pure. And she says she's praying and rooting for me. And I'm praying and rooting for all of you because I'm sure you've got your own issues. And JM162 says she's sorry to hear I don't feel so good. And she talks about the PTSD I've been suffering since the kidnapping and says I shouldn't blame myself for not just getting over it. It was so dreadful for you, and that will never change. My husband has PTSD, so I know what you are talking about. Be proud of yourself and the fact that you can even get out of bed, let alone function as highly as you do. Now, JM62, I must tell you, the reason why I berate myself for not getting over some of my traumatic experiences, especially the kidnapping, is because I know other people who've been kidnapped and they're not like me. I mean, some of them have completely fallen apart and, you know, but you'd be amazed here in Nigeria, the number of people who have been kidnapped and are just going about their daily business. They're not too scared to go back to where they were kidnapped from. They're just coping so much better than I am. So that's why I'm not blaming myself in isolation. I'm comparing myself to people who are stronger, you know? And another great trauma was my father's death. I still haven't gotten over that. My mother's death still, you know, it's one thing after another. My divorce, oh, that's another one. But we'll talk about all these things over time, okay? And it says, then I have Patricia Wask, who is a regular contributor. And she says, oh my gosh, Donny, years ago, I went to a clinical psychologist and she really did help me learn how to cope with the wounds of my past. I'm simply sharing what she taught me with you because Patricia sent me some really encouraging, you know, in-depth mental rejuvenation stuff last week. She said she also took medication following the death of her husband and it helped her panic attacks. But the side effects of the medication were worse. Okay? Then we have Mary from the United States. It's good that you have a priest friend who cares enough to chide you for irregular church attendance. Maybe leaning on him and others who still show kindness at our ripened age of 64 will help lift your spirits. She says she, like me, is a comfort eater. You're not eating to cheer yourself up, eating because you're depressed and getting fat. And then there's Sandra Miller, who says that back in the 1980s, she met some ladies from Ghana and Nigeria at university and became so fascinated with their braided hairstyles, which I had never seen before. And they told her that the styles had particular meanings in their cultures. One night while socializing, they grabbed me and put some braids in my fine blonde hair, which looked funny and ridiculous, and everyone laughed. I would like to know more about the African hairstyles. Okay, we will talk about African hairstyles. Maybe one of these days I'll even show you my own hideous natural hair. We'll see. But yes, I used to braid my hair when I was younger. And in fact, it was tight braids that caused part of the problem I have today that makes me wear wigs. And let me just say, I turned 64 2 days ago. Sorry, I'm not 64 anymore. I'm now 65. I turned 65 2 days ago. And, I don't like the feeling, but what can I do about it? Thank you. I hope you'll find the time to watch my Friday video, which is called Thank God It's Friday, in 2 days' time. And also to tune into Wellness Wednesday next Wednesday. See you then. Bye.